and welcome to Conscious Curiosities, where we unlock the wisdom of the universe which lies within us. I'm Maria Luz, your host, an astrologer, certified hypnotist, and psychic medium. Today's episode is Sedna in Gemini. In this episode, we explore the following: the significance of Sedna in astronomy, mythology, and astrology, the lessons Sedna may bring to our individual and collective evolution. I don't know about you, but these last few weeks have felt like I'm riding around in a self driving car with no idea where it is going and no way to get out. Things which we never believed possible have been unfolding in front of our eyes. Any sense that we could control our little corner of existence has been rocked. If minding one's own business or flying under the radar were ever viable strategies for personal peace, they no longer exist. As we have incorporated social media and online conveniences into our lives, everyone's business is everyone else's in order to keep those machines humming. And yeah, no, I don't have the answer, but I have been fascinated with dwarf planet Sedna and believe its energy, like that of Pluto, is intertwined with the story of humankind. Sedna and Pluto, in conversation from the air signs of Gemini and Aquarius, signal that we are meant to see that our power lies in how we direct our conscious attention. We will continue to give our power away by habitually scrolling on our phones, getting angry with trolls, or distracted by what has been designed to hold our attention and ultimately have us part with our resources, all while giving away data on our likes, searches, and purchases. Will we continue to break down our self trust by constantly seeking external information simply because it is convenient, rather than putting in the work on daily practices such as meditation, which foster internal wisdom? Sedna is a dwarf planet located far beyond any planet in our solar system, with an extraordinarily elongated egg shaped orbit. A whopping 11,406 Earth years in a single orbit around our sun. Yes, over 11,000 years in a single orbit around our sun. Scientists say that the extremely elongated orbit is a mark of an encounter with an object which is no longer there. So it had to essentially go around this object, and that's why it became so elongated. It's described as the second reddest object in our solar system behind Mars and is one of the furthest objects we have the technology to visualize. The last closest pass of Sedna to Earth along her orbit correlates with the end of the last ice age here and the beginning of agriculture, known as the Neolithic Revolution. During this time, there was a wide-scale change in how humans operated, from hunter-gatherer to our evolutionary predecessors being able to put down roots. This was the start of the radical modification of the natural environment with things like crop rotation, irrigation, deforestation, etc. This era saw the development of settlements, the ability to have surplus food, create immovable art, trade, and administrations. Depersonalized systems of knowledge were created during this time. Seeds were planted for densely populated areas, specialization in economic, political, and hierarchic foundations, which would support this new way of human existence. Sedna will make another closest pass to Earth in about 50 years, so we are currently in the shadow of another major shift in our existence. Our whole known human history has been in the last Sedna year, since the Neolithic Revolution. In fact, all of recorded history has been just in the last 6 Sedna months, starting with Sedna in Libra. And again, Libra is about people in relationship, among other things. And that was when Sumerian cities and later the Bronze Age began. And then Sedna entered Scorpio around 3000 BCE, which is when ancient Egypt rose. And there were cults around the dead, which track with that Scorpio and Pluto energy. And when Sedna was in Sagittarius, we saw themes of law and higher education and philosophy with the rise of ancient Greece during that period. Sedna entered Aries, which is associated with war, in 1865, and we did see larger scale wars and the rise of greater destructive capabilities via technology. Then Sedna and Taurus began in 1966, from which time forward the focus was on establishing security, which is a Taurus theme, via relating. So think of the peace movement and material resources. Think of the 80s and beyond. And you can see those windows of time where Sedna was in each sign were getting smaller and smaller because Sedna's been coming again back to the closest part on that super long 11,000 year orbit. Sedna began ingressing into Gemini in June of 2023 and then moved back and forth over the 0 degree Gemini mark. And as of April 2024, Sedna is there until 2065. And notably, the next closest pass of Sedna to Earth, similar to the pass when the Ice Age ended, will be in 2078 when Sedna is in Cancer. With Sedna and yeah, sorry, I was making sure that I read that right. Cancer, and yeah, I would be 108 years old if I were still here. So probably not. With Sedna and Pluto, and by the way, Pluto is another dwarf planet, who also moved back and forth over 0 degrees, but of Aquarius instead of Gemini. Those two are in this conversation because they're in a trine aspect from some Sedna and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius. And considering that both of those planets will be in those air signs for decades, there's a focus on themes related to technology, communication, perception, and how small networks of people and larger groups organize themselves outside of the dominant consensus or the status quo societal framework. As well, this points to how we perceive consciousness of AI and how we relate with it. So keep those Gemini, Aquarius, and air element concepts in mind as we explore Sedna further. First, let me tell you about the mythology. So, I found an episode of the podcast called After Dark. It's episode 36, where they interviewed Tia Tidwell, professor of Alaska Native Studies at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. She belongs to the Nunavut people of Anaktuvuk Pass. Sedna was named after the Inuit goddess of the sea. To the Inuits, gods were not divine, but part of this world. Sedna was extremely beautiful and was in a relationship with a shapeshifter, which was against the rules. She refused to marry any of the men in the village. And finally, when Sedna refused to marry her father's choice of husband, Sedna's father or the people take her out to sea and throw her overboard. In some versions, she falls overboard. She tries to climb back and holds on tight to the boat. And then her fingers, or in some versions, her forearms too, are cut off. And as she sinks, she gives rise to all the sea mammals, which become the source of a bountiful life in the Arctic. She becomes a sea goddess, worshipped by hunters who depend on her goodwill to supply food, warmth, and raw materials via those sea mammals. Some interpretations focus on the victimization of Sedna by her father and her clinging, literally, to the boat, to the only reality she knew. However, the complete view includes her remarkable transcendence through the lot she was dealt in life to becoming a kind and benevolent goddess, nurturing the people, including those who betrayed her, who became reliant on her for life in the Arctic. We may consider this analogous to being put into crisis, which would be the being pushed off the boat part, experiencing the futility of refusing to let go of what we know. That would be the fingers being cut off, grasping, and then entering into spiritual consciousness, which would be symbolized by the water, and possibly attaining a state of transcendence, which would be the becoming the goddess part. And then the astrological interpretations of Sedna's signature will follow. In his book, Sedna Consciousness, The Soul's Path of Destiny, Alan Clay describes his research, from which I summarize Sedna's energy, as a surrender and trust in what awaits us beyond the familiar, tangible world. There's a letting go of trauma and a state of victimhood in order to feel peace and purpose through using our gifts, leading to a state of transcendence. He points to Edgar Cayce, the father of holistic medicine, as a case study for how Sedna combines into one way of being or one perspective our ancestry, evolutionary change, and spiritual development in a unified worldview. Clay employs astrologer Dane Rudhyar's framework of 3 levels a planet can operate from, depending on the individual's level of consciousness or spiritual development, to describe Sedna's energetic impact. Did I say impact? Impact. Below are keywords, and not below because I'm saying them out loud on the podcast. I'm sorry, I'm a little spacey today. Um, Actually, maybe I should confess, I was going to just do a repeat of a podcast episode and just record a new intro and just post my new work on Substack, because I know I'm supposed to downscale what I'm producing, but I just really wanted to share this Sedna episode with everybody. And I did an earlier one last May, but I've updated it so much that I just felt like I had to share it here too. Okay, back to the programming. Keywords associated with each of the levels. At the unconscious level, we have, so that means, not working on spiritual development at all. Probably where I was a few years ago. At the unconscious level, victimization, persistent illness, alienation, unrelenting trauma and suffering, nurturing resentment, unbearable pressure, caught in quicksand, personal blind spot. Yep, that's definitely where I was back in 2020. Okay. Then, once you're on the spiritual path, these are the keywords that apply. Radical acceptance, acknowledging just how bad things really are and starting from there, keeping our heart open in hell, nurturing our sense of humor, beating our drum and singing to life, fated transcendence. And then at the spiritually evolved level, spiritual destiny, transcendent peace, nurturing abundance, allowing love and harmony, transpersonal consciousness, and higher octave of Ceres. And Ceres, or Ceres, is also known as Demeter, the goddess of the earth. And Alan Clay sees this relationship between the moon and then the higher octave of the moon being Ceres, and then the higher octave of Ceres being Sedna. The Sabian symbol for Sedna's current position at the start of Gemini gave me chills because it so closely mirrors the mythology and also what Clay's research shows about the astrological correlations. And there have also been, and will continue to be, many rare conjunctions and aspects that are occurring at or from this degree of Gemini. So, what the Sabian symbol is, a glass bottomed boat reveals undersea wonders, depth of realization in a consciousness, constantly in touch with the sources of life, sensitiveness to collective images. Wow. So I couldn't believe how it applied to pretty much everything that I've written. And if, again, the Sabian symbols were channeled in 1925, and there's a little phrase and then a slightly longer, more poetic one for every single degree of the 360-degree zodiac. So I'm also keeping an eye on late August / early September because that's when Uranus makes a conjunction with Sedna. And then they're also both together there in a trine to Pluto. And that is it. I hope you feel empowered to be consciously curious about Sedna. And if you enjoy this content, please like, share, write a review so that others can find it. And come see me over on Substack, where I am at Maria Lou's O'Rourke. I have a section devoted to astrology there, and there's lots of free tools and content for you to continue your astrology journey. As always, I'd love to see you as a client. Visit my website, marialuz.online. You can use the code AstroHip for 20% off any services. It's still pretty early in the year, and it's a nice time to do a 2025 lookout or to schedule your solar return. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye bye.